Tom Aspinall's father has just released a video giving an update on the eye injury following Tom Aspinall's disastrous main event against Ciryl Gane on Saturday. So in today's video, we're going to be reacting to that video, see if it gives us any more details, who Andy Aspinall blames for everything in the situation, and find out what's next for Tom. Hello guys, and welcome back to Alex on MMA. Hope you're all doing well. So before we get into this video and reacting to the fight clips, reacting to the video clips I should say, from Andy Aspinall, I do want to talk quickly about the last video because I did come under some heat. I got kind of cooked in the comments, I'll be honest with you. But first and foremost, I take absolutely nothing personally. I welcome all comments, whether they're criticisms or not. But the basis of the criticisms for my last video, that video being the fight recap of Tom Aspinall against Ciryl Gane, seems to be more of a case of people just kind of reading the fairly provocative title, which was Ciryl Gane on his way to beating Tom Aspinall, rather than diving a bit deeper into the weeds and seeing what I actually had to say about it. And really for me, it was more of a case of expectation versus reality, because many people, including myself, expected business as usual from Tom Aspinall, him just to go in there, blow out Ciryl Gane early doors, take him down, and get him out of there. And when that wasn't the case, I know it was very competitive, very even on the feet, but it definitely told me that Ciryl Gane wasn't this washed fighter that we'd seen lose all composure against John Jones, but that he was a very real threat in the fight against Tom Aspinall. He landed some nice shots, bloodied the nose of Tom Aspinall, and that's not taking anything away from the Brit's performance. Look, I'm a massive Tom Aspinall fan, but he did get caught a few times. He left himself fairly open to counters and things like that. And Ciryl Gane did impress me in those opening 4 minutes. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But anyway, like I said, I don't take any of these comments personally. Please do watch the full video if you think that I'm just saying that Ciryl Gane was definitely on his way to beating Tom Aspinall. I don't believe that was the case at all. But anyway, let's take a look at this video, the update from Andy Aspinall regarding Tom's injury.
I'm just bothered that my kid's got a job that he likes and he wants to do it, and he's been fouled in a contest. The guy who fouled him, no consequence to him, and now there's a consequence to Tom. And hopefully it'll be all right, but it might not be.
And look, as an opening, I completely understand where Andy Aspinall's coming from. We're going to get into the context of his father-son relationship with Tom later on, but just on the basis of that, it's fairly hard to argue with it. I think saying that there's absolutely no consequence for Ciryl Gane, I guess it's not entirely true, because in a fight where he was doing very well, he wasn't able to finish it. Of course, that was his own fault. But I think this is more of a statement, more of a telltale sign about where the heavyweight division is right now, because we know that Dana White has denied people title fights for lesser things than this. However, with the state of the heavyweight division currently, you could probably give it to Alexander Volkov following his victory at the weekend, but really Ciryl Gane beat Volkov in that #1 contender fight and was therefore granted this fight. So I completely empathise with where Andy Aspinall's coming from. There is no real consequence to this foul by Ciryl Gane. He'll still get paid. He'll still get another crack at the title. That will make it 4 title fights that Ciryl Gane's had, which is absolutely unprecedented in the heavyweight division especially. So look, it does seem as though Ciryl Gane hasn't really faced any consequences here. And as Tom Aspinall's father, I completely understand why he feels so aggrieved about this. Let's take a look at the next clip.
But his eye is a little bit more closed than it was. His right eye still can't see anything. He said it's just grey. And they tested him on words and he just couldn't see anything. His left eye, 50%, he went down about 4 letters and then couldn't see the letters. So one's really, really blurry and one's still not working.
And look, there's no doubt in my mind that the haters online will be saying that these are all lies coming out of the Aspinall camp. But I just don't believe that. Why would his father go on the record, say all this stuff immediately after the event? I understand that he wants to protect his son, but to me, this looks like a father who's really very concerned with his son's well-being. I think we just have to take it at face value. On top of that, this kind of adds into the backlash that we've seen online. We have seen considerable statements from media members, from former fighters, criticising the fact that Tom Aspinall called this fight off. The fact of the matter is, as soon as you say, I can't see, the referee and the doctor in the octagon, they're obliged to end the fight. It's just not safe to continue. And the fact that people have been going after Tom Aspinall for this, I think is ridiculous, especially with this coming out. The fact of the matter is he's got grey vision in one of the eyes and he can't see out of the other. That's enough to tell you that this was a significant eye injury. I know that he was only dabbing one eye at the time, maybe that was a more painful eye, but really I'm shocked that former fighters have come out and criticised him for this. Look, ultimately maybe Chael Sonnen and Anthony Smith, two former fighters who said that Aspinall should have carried on. Maybe they didn't know the extent of the injuries at the time because this video from Tom's father came out after they made those comments. But even so, maybe that tells you exactly what you need to know. Maybe hold off giving your opinion until you know the extent of the injuries. At the end of the day, Tom was fighting with so much at stake, his first defence of his unified belt, and if he couldn't see out of one eye, let alone two, then he's in no fit position to continue. I know that there's an old school way of thinking about that warrior spirit, the warrior mentality, but at the same time, he's got a family to provide for. He needs to think about bigger picture stuff rather than just losing face with some former fighters. So I think he made the complete correct decision in not continuing on in that fight. Like I said in my previous video, by the way, if people have cared to watch that. But clearly here, Andy Aspinall has some very real concerns about Tom's vision moving forward, and he's going to get into that in a bit more detail here.
It's quite terrifying, really, isn't it?
For me, everything's about his health. It's not about fighting, that's just what he chose to do as a job. And one of the consequences is you can get hurt. But it's a bad consequence if you lose your sight. And especially by a foul. And the guy who committed it, and I'm not getting at Ciryl Gane in any way, it happens a lot in MMA. If you commit a foul with an eye poke, the referee just says, don't do it. Nobody's ever lost a fight because of an eye poke. And I'm not saying somebody should win or lose, it doesn't. But the safety of the thing is paramount. And I'm fed up of saying, if it was somebody else's son, they would say what I say. If your son's fighting, you want him to be as safe as you can. And he got poked in the eye and it's bad and he could have lost his sight. Still not got his sight in one eye. So we don't know, we're still waiting on, we're waiting.
And look, that's the most legit point of them all. And I don't know if you're a father watching this or a mother and you've got kids, but ultimately that's what all of this is about. Andy Aspinall is speaking from the perspective of a father. Just imagine how terrifying it'd be to watch your kid fighting anyway. And the fact that some long-lasting damage could occur as a result of a foul, not even within the agreed rule set in which they're fighting, is a very real concern for a father. So no matter what you think about Andy Aspinall's comments in Fight Week, and we're going to get onto those very shortly, his son has suffered a very real injury, and he'd be upset about it either way. But the fact of the matter is that it was a foul that led to this makes him feel even more aggrieved, and I think you can see the frustration on his face, the disappointment, the fear even on his face in these videos.
Following properly, it should have been stopped. He couldn't see. It was a foul. He couldn't see. Then you can't fight. You know, if he'd have got knocked out with a head kick next, then it would have been worse.
This is a massive point as well, and something that's clearly being very overlooked by people in the media. We just spoke about the stakes, that it's Tom Aspinall's first title fight, but the very realistic outcome, had Tom Aspinall continued with one eye working, maybe one eye even just half working, is the fact that he would have almost definitely lost this fight. Ciryl Gane is a hard enough fighter to fight against with two eyes, unless you're John Jones. But there's no reason for Tom Aspinall to continue in this fight with really compromised vision and so much at stake. I think that kind of puts it all to bed, and they're the clips from Andy Aspinall's video that I really wanted to go into. However, there's a bit of a bigger picture to take a look at with this whole Tom Aspinall, Andy Aspinall UFC thing that I do want to touch upon slightly, and it's the way in which Dana White has reacted. And we all know that Dana White isn't the most forthcoming when it comes to the post-fight press conference. He doesn't really like to consider or really give answers about fights that he's going to make and stuff like that. And it didn't really appear here as though Tom Aspinall had his full support. And the MMA media members who did a little bit of digging, it didn't take them long to realise that this could be loosely connected with Andy Aspinall's comments in Fight Week regarding Tom Aspinall's desire to go to boxing once his current contract is up with the UFC. And if you know anything about the history of the heavyweight division, we saw something very similar play out with Francis Ngannou when he had his last fight of his contract against Ciryl Gane. His last fight was delayed. He made it clear his desire to switch to boxing afterwards. And the UFC clearly were not very happy with this. And this really gives me echoes of that, because I do feel as though Dana White, he doesn't really want to do fighters any favours if he thinks they're going to leave them. The worst position the UFC can be in is having a heavyweight champion who's no longer under contract and decides to leave the organisation. All it does is sort of diminish the prestige of that heavyweight title, because the next fight for the heavyweight title will be between two fighters, neither one of which has beaten the current champion. So it does tarnish the heavyweight title slightly, and you can understand why Dana White wouldn't want to be in that position. Do I think that Tom actually wants to go into boxing? Honestly, I've got absolutely no idea. Part of me does think that this is negotiation tactics, and at this point with the UFC, absolutely nothing would surprise me. As I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of weeks' time if it's announced that Tom Aspinall signed some kind of record heavyweight contract in the UFC. And look, if he does so, John Jones will have something to say about it. But although I don't think Andy Aspinall's comments really helped Tom during fight week about potential moves to boxing, I do see this more as public negotiation. He knew there were a lot of eyes on Tom Aspinall during the fight week. Just to put this out in the ether does bring eyeballs, does get attention going, and maybe helps him when it comes to the negotiation table. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video, reacting to Andy Aspinall's comments, the updates on Tom's eye injury. And based on what we know, what we've seen, it does look like a severe injury. Hopefully Tom makes a speedy recovery and we see him back sometime soon. And look, I don't know about you, but I felt so flat after that main event. It was one I was looking forward to so much. I'd not seen Tom Aspinall fight in over a year, and thankfully it seems as though they're going to be remaking this as soon as Tom Aspinall's eye injury is better. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel for weekly UFC MMA content. Comment below what you made of Andy Aspinall's comments, and I'll see you in the next video.